was the role of the CIA in Afghanistan?
The CIA had managed to negotiate with Pakistan to have Pakistan aid in funneling weapons and resources to the Mujahideen in Afghanistan in order to conduct a war to quell the Soviet threat spreading in the Persian region.
There was a lack of a long-range vision. Many of these people receiving weapons in Afghanistan from the U.S. were very much anti-American even at the time, and an Afghan said that to the U.S., you're funding your own assassins.
Why you came to Iraq? Why? No, not you. You're a politic, you're a command. Why came here? You said you have many reasons. Still now, you don't have anything. But look what you done. You destroyed all the people. Why? Because your politic is very wrong from the beginning.
We feel that a person who is evil-minded or ignorant might dislike us. Like people in most countries, we see ourselves the way we want to see ourselves, the way we'd like to be.
They don't look up to us like they used to before. They don't see us as a great nation like they did before.
Until we understand how we look to other people, we can't really grasp why they are reacting to us the way they do.
When you let the people steal everything or take everything and you... بس راح اريد تترجمي لي هذه كلش مهمه. احنا هذا كله صار.
This all happened, okay?
This all happened. But we want to know how we can live now.
Although we Americans tend to forget these interventions right after they happen and move on to the next phase or the next project, the people in those countries that were the targets of these interventions do not forget. The memory of these interventions festers and burns in the hearts and souls and minds of people over years, decades, even generations. Ultimately, that anger explodes.
This is the most dangerous time to be an American because a lot of, like I said, many of the people who hate us are acutely aware of our past history and our past conduct as a result of these overthrows.
What if that because we keep spreading our control or attempting to spread control across the seas, across other lands, that it's at the point where we're gonna hit someone or something that it's gonna basically cause like a madness across the rest of the world?
Fear is definitely a catalyst to groupthink, and it gets manipulated by leaders.
I mean, it might sound just like a conspiracy theory, it's just a what if, but it's just like, what if this was to happen?
What if every country out there, just one representative, and they all come together? Would that retaliate later on in life to us?
September the 11th not only caused a lot of fear, but it caused a lot of anger. Because the ideal here is we're entitled to be safe and to survive and to be rich and to be wealthy, and no one should come against us.
The record high today, close to $55 a barrel, just over 70.
The long-range vision, the entire thought behind that, and in terms of our strategic development of foreign policy, how does that tie to Saddam Hussein?
It started with the Taliban in Afghanistan with Osama bin Laden. He got his start with American weapons and American training and the CIA and everything. He is a product of America. I mean, he hated us, and we gave him weapons and we trained him.
We just wanted to bleed out the Soviet Union. It was a big power and we wanted to get rid of them, and we found a chance in Afghanistan. We supplied them with $470 million in 1986, and the next year, $630 million. I mean, an astonishing amount of money and weaponry. And later on, once the Soviet was destroyed, we left. We left Afghanistan alone. They decided to, Pakistan helped in building a military unit, and they took control of Afghanistan, and that unit is the Taliban, but they basically started with the help of American money.
In the last 8 or 10 years, people have found comfort in casting terrorists as criminals or crazy people. And it's because the nature of what they do seems so out of sync with normal, conventional, mainstream behavior. What I think is most important is if you want to address or fight terrorism, you have to understand that from the perspective of the people engaging in those acts, they feel victimized. Terrorism is a fairly desperate part of the revolution. You only do that, I mean, it's more risky than other revolutionary techniques. So you only do that as perhaps a last resort or a persistent way of hanging on. No one ever thinks about themselves as a terrorist. Every terrorist perceives that they're a revolutionary, simply engaging in terrorism for the larger cause. Bottom line here, you want to reduce terrorism, you have to reduce victimization, or the perception of victimization. And until we do that, the so-called war on terrorism or the effort to reduce terrorism in our world isn't going to be successful.
Until we understand how we look to other people, we can't really grasp why they are reacting to us the way they do.
There's a vibrant issue regarding the very essence of our nation and what we do. I'd like to pause here and turn towards the audience and again ask for your questions.
My name is Daniel. I go to Harold Washington College, and my question was, in case of the invasion of Afghanistan, if the Soviet Union would have prevailed, what would that victory have meant for U.S. foreign policies?
Hypothetical question.
Well, I think you pose a very good question. And I think that the question that you ask really leads us to thinking about how we ought to use that power as a force for good where we can. Now, the last thing I'll say about that, which I think is important, because we were talking here about how we should stay and help countries, and what we're arguing for, everyone on this panel, I hope you know this is what you're arguing for, that we ought to stay in Iraq as well, and make sure that Iraq becomes a stable democracy, which I don't know, once again, as we argue these things, whether we should win or whether we can win. Many people believe that we can't win a war against a terrorist ideology, but as we suggest that we should have stayed in all these other nations, we are suggesting that we ought to stay in Iraq too. And I know that many people on this panel don't necessarily agree with that.
I don't think we're actually suggesting that we stay in Iraq or stay in the countries. I think the point was more that we go into the countries, we shake them all up, and then we leave. And we don't help them pick up one of the pieces that we knocked over. I mean, it's like going into a playroom if you're a kid and knocking everything down and laughing about it and leaving.
In Iraq,
Professor Velarde.
It's not going to happen. First of all, we're getting out of Iraq. The American public are tired of it. Let me get to education. In order to change these things, we're not going to change it now. We have to start right now. We have to start at the elementary level and work its way up with education. And the reason I'm saying this is because it's our culture. It's our culture. We're an impatient people.
This book is a national bestseller, right? Mm-hmm. But I mean, are we going to change in this country?
How do we fix that? I mean, you could change on an individual level with the people around you and educating, your friends or other people. But a lot of times I found when you try to educate people on, this information, like you're a conspiracy theorist or you're just, you're left wing, you're a crazy liberal.
We got ourselves into this mess.
And we can't get out.
And we can't. There's no way of getting out.
Can't get out
You've
now.
affected these countries.
This is something that happens all the time, has been accepted over the years, okay? And so even in the American government, there is a part of our government that sort of understands this to be just the way things are. We've come to accept this. I mean, our government overthrows other governments, and we just kind of accept it. We don't like it. We say we don't like it. We kind of vote against it, but then many of us don't vote against it. Okay, right?